Welcome to 15-minute battles, where we demolish history's biggest conflicts in just 15 minutes. We dive deep into the world's most pivotal military clashes, from the ancient battlefields of Marathon to the complex strategies of modern warfare. The leaders, who were the legendary generals and forgotten heroes commanding the troops, and finally, the outcomes. If you love history, military strategy, and learning something new quickly, you are in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss another historic clash.
Imagine a land rich and wild, home to hundreds of warring tribes. For nearly a decade, this land, known as Gaul, had groaned under the boot of Roman legions. But in 52 BCE, something shifted. A spark of rebellion ignited, and from the embers rose a leader, Vercingetorix, a nobleman of the Arverni tribe. He was charismatic, cunning, and he accomplished the impossible. He united the fractured Gauls against their common enemy. Vercingetorix knew he couldn't beat the disciplined Roman legions in a straight fight, so he chose a different strategy: starvation. He led a brutal scorched earth campaign, burning Gallic towns and fields, anything that could supply the Roman war machine. He aimed to lure the legendary general Julius Caesar deep into hostile territory, far from his supply lines. The plan worked. After a Roman defeat at Gergovia, Caesar's army was on the back foot. Vercingetorix, confident, made his move. He gathered his forces and retreated to the hill fort of Alesia. From atop this massive, steep-sided plateau, he believed he was untouchable, an impregnable fortress from which he could wait out the Romans. But where Vercingetorix saw a fortress, Caesar saw a cage. Assaulting the sheer cliffs of Alesia would be suicide. Caesar, ever the pragmatist, decided if he couldn't storm the fortress, he would seal it. He ordered his legions to do something monumental: build a wall. Not just any wall, but a circumvallation, a continuous line of fortifications 11 miles long, complete with towers, trenches, and palisades, encircling the entire hill fort. The goal was simple: starve Vercingetorix and his 80,000 warriors into submission. But then, Caesar received alarming intelligence. A massive Gallic relief army was being raised across Gaul, an army of unprecedented size, marching to break the siege. Most commanders would have retreated, but Caesar was not most commanders. He did the unthinkable. He ordered his men to build a second wall. This one, the contravallation, was 14 miles long and faced outwards, designed to defend against the coming relief force. The Romans were now trapped inside their own creation, a fortified donut, a ring of wood and earth. They were besieging the Gauls in Alesia, while simultaneously preparing to be besieged themselves. It was one of the most audacious gambles in military history. With his 50,000 legionaries now stretched thin across 25 miles of fortifications, Caesar couldn't afford a direct assault on his walls. He needed to stop the Gallic charge before it even began. So he turned the ground between his two walls into a terrifying death trap. This no man's land became a nightmarish landscape of ancient engineering, the world's first minefields. His men dug deep trenches, some filled with water diverted from a nearby river and lined with sharpened branches. They planted what they called lili, hidden pits camouflaged with brush, each containing a fire-hardened stake pointing upwards, ready to impale the unwary. And scattered across the field were thousands of stimuli, small iron barbs set in wooden blocks, designed to cripple horses and men alike. The message was clear: any attempt to cross this field would be met with excruciating pain and death, long before a single Gaul reached the Roman ramparts. Inside Alesia, the situation was becoming desperate. Food was running out. Starvation was setting in. In a grim council of war, a terrible decision was made: to conserve what little food remained for the warriors. All non-combatants, the women, the children, the elderly, were expelled from the fortress. They were forced out into the deadly no-man's land between the walls, hoping the Romans would take them as slaves. But Caesar, his own supplies dwindling, refused. Trapped between the silent walls of Alesia and the unforgiving Roman fortifications, these poor souls were left to starve. It was a brutal, heartbreaking testament to the desperation of the siege. Then they arrived. A thunderous roar on the horizon, the Gallic relief army, a colossal force, estimated by some ancient sources at nearly 250,000 men, descended upon the Roman lines. Caesar's 50,000 legionaries were now hopelessly outnumbered, perhaps 5 to 1. They were trapped in their wooden donut, facing a starving, desperate army on one side and a gargantuan, fresh army on the other. The final, bloody chapter of the Gallic Wars was about to begin. The fate of Gaul and of Caesar himself hung precariously in the balance. The grand assault came with the force of a tidal wave. The Gauls launched a massive, coordinated attack on two fronts simultaneously. From within Alesia, Vercingetorix's warriors stormed the inner wall, while the enormous relief army crashed against the outer defenses. The focus of the attack was a weak point in the Roman lines, a section over a hill called Mount Rhe, where the terrain had made construction difficult. The sound was deafening, the roar of tens of thousands of men, the clash of steel, the splintering of wood. The Roman lines began to bend and buckle under the sheer weight of numbers. Legionaries fought with desperate courage, but they were being overwhelmed. The contravallation was about to break. At this critical moment, Caesar made his move. He knew the battle, and his entire campaign was on a knife's edge. Throwing off his commander's cloak to reveal his distinctive, brilliant red one, he grabbed a sword and personally led his last reserves into the thickest of the fighting. The sight of their general, his red cloak a beacon in the chaos, fighting in the front ranks, electrified the exhausted Romans. Their lines stiffened, their shouts of defiance renewed. Caesar's presence turned the tide of morale, but it was his final tactical move that sealed the fate of the Gauls. He dispatched his cavalry commander, Labienus, with all available horsemen to ride out and around the battle, to fall upon the rear of the Gallic relief army. The cavalry charge was devastating. It smashed into the rear of the attacking Gauls, who, caught completely by surprise, panicked. The attack faltered, then broke completely. The relief force, their will shattered, turned and fled. From the walls of Alesia, Vercingetorix and his warriors watched as their last hope was scattered to the winds. The fight went out of them. The siege was over. The next day, the gates of Alesia opened. Vercingetorix, in a final solemn act of dignity, rode out alone, clad in his finest armor. He circled Caesar's command post before dismounting, laying his weapons and armor at the feet of his conqueror, and sitting in silent submission. The great Gallic rebellion was crushed. The fall of Alesia was more than just a stunning military victory. It was the death knell of an independent Gaul. Over the next centuries, the region would be thoroughly Romanized, its language and culture transformed, laying the foundations for what would one day become modern France. But Alesia's legacy stretched far beyond the borders of Gaul. For Caesar, it was the ultimate triumph. He had conquered a vast and wealthy territory, and more importantly, he had forged an army of veteran legions, fanatically loyal to him and him alone. Back in Rome, the Senate watched with growing fear. They saw not a victorious general, but a potential tyrant with a private army at his back. The immense power and popularity Caesar gained at Alesia made a confrontation with his political rivals, like Pompey the Great, inevitable. The siege of Alesia didn't just end the Gallic Wars. It lit the fuse for the Roman Civil War. Less than 2 years later, Julius Caesar would lead his loyal legions across a small river called the Rubicon, uttering the famous words, "The die is cast." The Republic, which had stood for nearly 500 years, was doomed. Alesia was the battle that made an emperor. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient history, please consider liking this video.
And that wraps up today's 15-minute battle. If you want to master more moments of military history in less time, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you for the next 15-minute battle.